With the preseason now in the books, it's time for my final 53-man roster projection today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of the Herd Mentality Substack, co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, co-host of the NFL First Read Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Well, folks, welcome in. The preseason is over. The Bills ended on a high note, a good performance against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And on Bill's squad with Jerry Ostrowski, I went through and we really analyzed that game and talked about the standouts. And I want to get into some of that here on today's episode of Locked On Bills, but I want to focus on that conversation through the lens of my final 53-man roster projection. So I'll go through each position, tell you predictively how I think this thing sorts out. Now, one of the big storylines every year when you get to this point is the concern, the panic, whatever words you want to insert, over exposing players to waivers and them being plucked and signed to other teams. And nobody loves when that happens. I want to go through the actual history of this since 2017 with the Bills, of players that they cut that didn't clear waivers ahead of, the cut down day and went to other teams. Because I think this is important. I think this gives you the right perspective on the reality of this. And this information comes courtesy of Chris Yonke, who is tremendous at really keeping up with these types of details. So let's go through it. 2017, it didn't happen. No players were cut and then signed to another team. In 2018, several. Ike Bucker went to the Chiefs. Adam Redmond went to the Cowboys. Kalen Clay went to the Giants. Tanner Vallejo went to the Browns. In 2019, wide receiver Ray McLeod to the Panthers. Cornerback Ryan Lewis to the Colts. Linebacker Deion Lacey to the Dolphins. In 2020, defensive tackle Vincent Taylor to the Browns. In 2021, defensive back Nick McLeod to the Bengals. 2022, defensive back Nick McLeod again, but this time to the Giants. Offensive lineman Luke Tenuta to the Colts. Offensive lineman Tanner Owen to the Saints. And defensive end Kingsley Jonathan to the Bears. Then in 2023, offensive lineman Nick Broker to the Texans. Cornerback Alex Austin to the Texans, and safety Zane Anderson to the Packers. In 2024, none. When you look back on that, do you feel like the Bills really missed out on anybody? I think the one that maybe hurts the most is Alex Austin, who went to the Texans and then now he's on the Patriots. He looks like he could be a good depth player for them, but not a whole lot there that you're super concerned about. So as you get antsy about a player that you're rooting for being exposed to waivers and them getting claimed, exhale. I think it's going to be okay. Without further ado, let's give you my final 53-man roster projection. At quarterback, I think the Bills will roster two of those, Josh Allen and Mitchell Trubisky. I think Shane Buechele and Mike White will be cut. And I think Shane Buechele will come back on the practice squad, and we'll see about Mike White. Maybe some team will like him to be their backup. Maybe he'll get a practice squad opportunity that he likes more than Buffalo. Maybe the Bills will have two quarterbacks on the practice squad. Point being, Josh Allen, Mitch Trubisky, I think, is where the Bills will go at quarterback. And shout out to Shane Buechele. I mean, could he have played better? I don't think so. I mean, relative to what his skill level is, what his experience level is, the circumstances, I thought he had a really impressive outing. I thought his pocket movement was really impressive, made some throws, made some plays. I thought he did a nice job. At running back, I think the Bills will keep 4, and that does include a fullback. So Reggie Gilliam, James Cook, Ray Davis, Ty Johnson. I think that's pretty straightforward. So Frank Gore and Elijah Young are your 2 players released. I give both of those guys a lot of credit. Elijah Young, almost 90 yards from scrimmage. It's been on the team for like 3 days. Came in and ran the ball super hard and made some contributions in the passing game. And then Frank Gore, I think he's had an unbelievable preseason, showing a multifaceted skill set as a runner, as a receiver. The pass pro last week against the Bears was terrific. I think he's done a nice job. I think the Bills will love to get him back on the practice squad. But I think this is cut and dry. The fullback, Gilliam, Cook, Davis, Johnson are your running backs. At wide receiver, and I know that this is one that's really interesting. You can convince me of a lot of different outcomes here. But this is where I land. I think the Bills will keep 5. Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir, Joshua Palmer. I think that's the easy part. Then I have Curtis Samuel and Tyrell Shavers making it. I know Curtis Samuel hasn't proven anything this preseason or really in this training camp, but I think based on his relationship with Josh Allen, based on some of the clutch moments he had late last season, the fact that he's a very unique skill set within this offense, the history with Brandon Beane, the history with Joe Brady, I think he's going to be safe. And here's the thing about Curtis Samuel, and I'm not trying to be an apologist or defend him in ways that he's not deserving. The big conversation with Curtis Samuel is availability and injuries, right? And I understand that he's banged up all the time. Over the last 3 years, how many games do you think Curtis Samuel has missed due to injury? How many do you think over the last 3 years? The answer is 4. 4. So I know he's played hurt a lot. He's banged up a lot. Ultimately, the guy has actually missed 4 games over the last 3 seasons. And then I think Tyrell Shavers makes it. I think Tyrell Shavers, really, last camp and preseason, he did well for himself. But, I thought he put it all together this year. Showed route running, showed vertical receiving skill, showed the ability to play multiple spots, contributed on special teams. I think he's exactly what you're looking for in a wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5. The size, I'm very interested here. I think he's done what he needed to do to earn a roster spot. Now, that does mean I don't have a spot for Elijah Moore. So, Elijah Moore, KJ Hamler, Deion Kane, Laviska Shenault, Christian Wilkerson, Stephen Gosnell, Grant DeBose. No spot on this roster for them. And the hard one is Elijah Moore because I do like the skill set. I just think he's made a ton of mistakes. Multiple drops. Couldn't dig out the third down throw in this game. Whiffed on a block that got the running back blown up in the backfield. I think he's made a lot of mistakes. I think he's got some appealing skill, but I have a hard time reconciling this one. And I've been a fan of Elijah Moore. But I struggle to look at the resume that he put together this camp and feel like he's earned it. I think there's a chance he's traded. There's some teams out there looking for wide receiver help, thinking about Minnesota. So I think that's definitely a possibility, but I have a hard time finding a spot for him. So I have him on the outside looking in. All right, coming up next, we'll do tight end, O-line, D-line. Some compelling conversations there. Folks, be sure to stick with me. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Ready. Rugiet Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. If traditional options haven't worked, Rugiet might be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. Head to Rugiet.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL to get 15% off today. That's Rugiet.com, RUGIET.com/LockedOnNFL. Use code LockedOnNFL for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rugiet website for full safety information. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champion before week one even kicks off, this is your moment. So maybe take a flyer on the MVP race. If you think Josh Allen goes back-to-back, maybe you think Baker Mayfield or Jared Goff or Justin Herbert, it's their turn. Get in on that action. How about crowning your champion? You think the Bills win the Super Bowl this year? Get in on the futures bets. Maybe you think another team wins. You don't want to say it out loud, but put a little cash on it. Or parlay your division winner dark horses if you got a hunch on where the divisions are going to go. So visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. All right, folks, welcome back. We've got tight end to explore now. I think this one's straightforward. Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox, Jackson Hawes. Those will be your guys. So your cuts, Kalecki Letu, Zach Davidson, Matt Sokol. I think the Bills will get one or two of those back on the practice squad. Super cool to see Zach Davidson punt, right? He did that at college. Did a nice job, right? And certainly a much better performance for him. I thought his first two preseason games were littered with mistakes, but found some consistency in this one. So Kincaid, Knox, Hawes, your tight ends on this roster. Now let's get to the offensive line, where this is a little bit tricky because, well, you didn't get to see Cedric Van Pran-Granger. And so I think Cedric Van Pran-Granger starts the year on the PUP list. And so I think that's where he has to be. He's not had any sort of training camp whatsoever. I think he starts in the PUP. So your five starters, Deion Dawkins, David Edwards, Connor McGovern, Osiris Torrance, Spencer Brown. Then I think you roster four backups. Alec Anderson, who I think will be the utility offensive lineman and probably your first guy in at center and guard. I think Tylen Grable will make it. I wish we could have seen more of him this preseason. He had the concussion, which kept him out, but he's the incumbent swing tackle. And I think he'll have a good chance to be that again this year, although I am disappointed that we get to see more of him this preseason. I think Ryan Vandemark makes it. I think with Grable and kind of the injuries that he's had, the concussion, and then last year he had the core muscle, I think you need to protect Ryan Vandemark as your most experienced with the Bills reserve offensive lineman. And then I think Kendrick Green is the last one, where Cedric Van Pran-Granger being on PUP opens the door for him. You know, he was a free agent signing, has been with the Bills throughout the entire offseason, can play center, can play guard, still young, right? I think it's his entering his fifth season, has won starting jobs in the past. I think that's going to matter a lot. He's athletic. He's got a wrestling background. I think there's a lot of boxes that he checks here. So I do think it's between him and Dan Feeney for a roster spot. And I'm going with the guy that's a little younger, that's been around for longer, in Kendrick Green. So your cuts, Chase Lunt is a draft pick. I give him credit. He showed a lot of versatility. And I think the Bills would love to get him back on the practice squad. I don't know that he's a guy that I look at right now and feel like he can help the Bills in a game situation where you probably do feel like way better about Vandemark or Kendrick Green. So I think Lunt is on the outside looking in. I could be wrong about that. I definitely could. But I thought he was been pretty shaky this preseason. So Chase Lunt, Dan Feeney, Travis Clayton, who of course will be on the practice squad as like an extra player since he's part of the International Pathway Program. Richard Garage, Mike Edwards, Jacob Bear, Rush Reimer, your players that are released. Cedric Van Prangranger again on the PUP list. So 9 offensive linemen, 5 starters, plus Alec Anderson, Tylen Grable, Ryan Vandemark, Kendrick Green. Defensive end, of course, Michael Hoyt, suspended, so he's off to the side. I think this is pretty straightforward. Greg Rousseau, Joey Bosa, A.J. Epinesa, Landon Jackson, Javon Solomon. Your 2 cuts, Paris Shand, Nelson Caesar. So this becomes more interesting once Hoyt is back and ready to go. And I think the immediate talking point at defensive end is, all right, Rousseau, Bosa, Epinesa, those are your top 3. Between Jackson and Solomon, who dresses, right? And whoever dresses is going to play 10 to 20% of the snaps and then also have a role on special teams. And so I think that's where that gets interesting. D-tackle, I think they keep 5 at Oliver, Daquan Jones. As your starters, Deion Walker, what a game. What a game he had against Tampa. I'm looking forward to studying the tape and really seeing the techniques that he used in this game because he was really phenomenal. I think he's collectively had a very good preseason. Really excited about the trajectory of Deion Walker, especially as a guy that's can play in the A-gap, right? I think he's gotten a chance to be a little bit more of a nose, and I think that works for him. TJ Sanders, of course, making this team. And then I do think Dwayne Carter will make it. I think he's going to be an inactive player, but I think he'll make it as a 3rd-round pick entering his 2nd season. So your cuts at D-tackle, Zion Logue, Casey Rogers, Marcus Harris. I'm sure they would love to get Zion Logue back on the practice squad. So 10 total defensive linemen. Again, Larry Ogunjobi suspended, Michael Hoyt suspended. So that helps this situation. And we'll see what happens when they're ready to go. I think one of the good parts of when they return is that it's after the bye, right? So the Bills will have the first 6 games, then a bye. Then their 7th game is against Carolina, and that's your opportunity to get Hoyt and Ogunjobi back, and then you can sort out, where you get the roster spots from there. But that's a down the line decision. I think it's pretty straightforward for now. All right, we'll dive into the defensive back 7 here. On the other side of it, there's some compelling things to get into at linebacker and at cornerback. So we'll do that here next. Folks, be sure to stick with me. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. The NFL season is right around the corner, and you can feel the buzz. Fantasy football season is here. Everyone's researching, drafting, and building their championship squads. If you haven't joined a league yet, now's the time, and it's all happening on Yahoo Fantasy. This year I'm playing on fantasy football on Yahoo, and you should too, whether it's your first ever league or a veteran creating your millionth league. Yahoo Fantasy is loaded with fun ways to compete and brand new features that make the game even better. With season kickoff on September 4th, now is the time to start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football, which offers so many fun ways to compete. And if you're looking to try some new methods of fantasy football, try the brand new Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine League mode, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's one team left standing. That's something I'm definitely trying this year. I like to do my typical dynasty league, but I'm adding a guillotine league. That sounds like a lot of fun. It's some different strategy. And I like the idea of, there's so much randomness a lot of times in fantasy football where, hey, just don't be the worst team that week. Now, obviously, you get a little dicey, right, as you get down the line, but just don't be the worst team that week. And you keep going, and then it probably gets pretty tight and competitive and fun. So I'm going to try that out this year. You should too. The NFL season kicks off September 4th, so don't wait. Start your league now. Draft now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. Welcome back, folks. Let's unpack the defensive back 7. Linebacker. This is challenging. I think the Bills will keep 6. Terrell Bernard, Matt Milano, Dorian Williams, Joe Andreessen, Shaq Thompson, Jimmy Charlo. Your 2 cuts, Adefwan Ulofoshio, Keontae Jenkins. So I think the top 4 are set. Bernard, Milano, Williams, and Andreessen. The Thompson-Charlo piece of this is, I think, where the conversation needs to happen. With Shaq Thompson, I know we haven't really seen him this preseason. I thought he looked really good in camp prior to the hamstring injury. where I think Shaq Thompson really has an edge to make this roster is, of course, he did look good. He's a veteran, right? And right now you're a snap away from Joe Andreessen at Mike backer, Dorian Williams at weak side backer. Shaq Thompson's extremely experienced, and he can play either spot. He's worn the green dot on his helmet. He knows how to handle that. And I think there's some versatility here that is going to matter. And there's some coverage ability that I think is superior to Dorian Williams and Joe Andreessen. So that ability to play two spots, the leadership, the time with this system that he's been in, I think he's got a real shot here, despite being a guy that really didn't do anything in preseason games. But it's a little bit like the Curtis Samuel situation, where I just predictively think he's going to make it. And then I do have a spot for Jimmy Charlo. You know, Sean McDermott on Hard Knocks said 3 players are going to make this team due to special teams. I think he's one of those guys. And I'll tell you about another one here in a minute, but I think Tyrell Shavers is the other. I think you're 3 guys that are going to make this team because of special teams. Tyrell Shavers, Jimmy Charlo, and somebody here in just a moment at corner. But this kickoff stuff's a big deal. You can't give them touchbacks. You can't concede the 35-yard line. You can't do it. You need guys that can make an open field tackle. And Charlo has proven that, whether it's from scrimmage or on special teams already. I think he's earned it. And the fact that you get reps above Edifwan Ulofoshio, I think the writing's on the wall there. So I think that special teams impact's real. And I think the Bills like to keep 6 backers. And I think Charlo is going to do it. So Bernard, Milano, Williams, Andreessen, Thompson, Charlo at linebacker, 6 of them. I also have the Bills keeping 6 corners. This is tough. I do have Maxwell Harrison starting the year on injured reserve. So I think they'll do injured reserve, designate to return. So I think he'll have to miss 4 weeks, and then you can go from there. I think that's got to be the plan there. Not only to get him healthy, but to get him ready to play. You know, that's the unfortunate part. He's missed time, right? So he's behind. So not only do you got to get the knee right, you got to get him ready to play football. 6 corners make it. Christian Benford, Taron Johnson, Tre'Davious White. Now look, if Tre'Davious White has a significant injury and he also has to be injured reserve, designate for return, then that opens up a spot. I'm operating right now that he's not going to miss like a substantial amount of time, even if he might not be ready to go for week 1. Dorian Strong, Jamarcus Ingram, and Brandon Codrington. So I have Dane Jackson being released, Daquan Hardy being released, Zy Alexander being released, Maxwell Harrison on IR. It's very difficult. You can convince me that I'm wrong about Dane Jackson, but that guy was playing late into the third quarter in this game. And part of me, like, I think he's got a real chance if Trey White can't go week 1 that he's going to be the starter. You know, he started 28 games since 2020 for the Bills, and here I am cutting him. But I mean, he's playing end of the third quarter. Jamarcus Ingram, from what I can tell, barely played in this game. That's a signal to me as the guy that was CB4 last year. He's going to be the starter. I think there's a good chance Jamarcus Ingram's a starter opposite of Christian Benford in week 1. Just based on the behavior of the team in this preseason game. And then Dorian Strong is a cost control rookie. Makes sense. I think they can get Dane Jackson back on the practice squad. They can maybe activate him for a couple weeks until Trey White's back. So that's kind of my feel on the pulse there. And I do have Brandon Codrington making it because nobody else has taken a punt return rep over the last 2 games. I think he's going to be back in this return role. And, you know, that could change like down the line when the Bills are ready to bring back Hairston, or you're trying to get one of these suspended players back. But the fact that they didn't give punt return reps to anybody besides him over the last 2 preseason games tells me that he's the punt returner. So it's tricky, but that's how I see it sorting out. Benford, Taron Johnson, Trey White, Jamarcus Ingram, Dorian Strong, Brandon Codrington. At safety, 5 of those: Taylor Rapp, Cole Bishop, DeMar Hamlin, Cam Lewis, Jordan Hancock. I think those are your 5 safeties, with Derek Forrest, Garnett Hollis, who was just signed like a couple days ago, and then Trey Herndon. Cut. Rapp, Bishop, Hamlin, Lewis, Hancock, your 5 safeties that make it. Then your 3 specialists, Reed Ferguson, Tyler Bass, Brad Robbins. That's how I see it shaking out. We're going to find out soon. You know, the cuts, you've already seen some of the teams that played a preseason game on Friday. Saturday, they were cutting guys already. So this could happen very quickly. So I wanted to go ahead and get this out to you, because once the information starts coming, it's not, who cares, right? You want to predict and be right about it. So I had to do this now immediately after this game ended so I can get it out there and we could see how I did. I am nervous about wide receiver in terms of being wrong there, because I think there are alternative outcomes. I think the offensive line piece could be interesting. The linebacker piece is interesting. The corner piece is interesting. So we will just have to stay tuned over the coming days and see how this all shakes out. All right. So I plan on doing an all 22 review, and that'll be a very focused, players that I think are going to be on this team. I certainly want to show a lot of Deion Walker, TJ Sanders, Landon Jackson, Shavers, I'm sure. And we'll focus in on guys. Cole Bishop did some good things in the game. We'll highlight that. So, it'll be a very intentional all 22 review that we'll do for our next conversation. Then we'll react to the cuts, herd mentality, all the stuff that we do, maybe some season preview stuff. And before we know it, we'll be getting ready for the Baltimore Ravens in week 1. So it's a great time to make sure that you're subscribed. Would love it if you took a second to rate, review, and share the podcast. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills. And I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.